Hello and welcome to the New Indian Express Online. I'm Bansi Kadapa. With me is a very senior and well-known journalist, someone who's been an author, a very well-known columnist, Mr. Sugata Srinivasaraju. Welcome to this program.
Mr. Bansikara.
So here we have a much-awaited book after his book on Mr. H.D. Devegowda, Furrows in the Field. This is the new book called Strange Burdens, the politics and predicaments of Rahul Gandhi. So, Mr. Raju, first of all, my question to you. You have about 11 chapters in this book.
That's right.
Let's quickly go through it. The first talks about loss, grief, and reconciliation. So, what are you talking about in this?
Yeah, I mean, the initial chapter is basically I'm trying to see how he coped with the assassinations of his father and grandmother. Because, that seems to have affected him, if I can use the word affected. And I trace his coping mechanism or what has been his process of reconciliation with that kind of loss, and what has been the reconciliation process of his sister Priyanka Gandhi, and how has Mrs. Sonia Gandhi herself tried to reconciliation with the huge loss and the assassination that took place of their loved ones. And I'm not I should warn, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, or I'm just a journalist like you. But that's fascinating kind of material that is there. And this material is not exclusive to me. A lot of it is in the public domain. So what I use to analyze or write a commentary about that is material that is already available in the public domain, his speeches, his interviews. Now, for example, I try and see how many times in the last 20 years, because this book is between 2004 and now, his politics, that is the year that he entered politics formally, when he was elected from Amethi till now. So I try to look at his major speeches and how at every juncture of, say, a promotion for himself within the party, or something big that he is trying to do, even the Bharat Jodo Yatra, the conclusion or the beginning of it or whatever, how these elements of loss and grief play an extraordinary role in the way he communicates or perceives things or understands things. So I thought that's a nice base to have to begin the book.
Also, personally, in this entire book, you have said in your own words that you've not interviewed Rahul. So, how much has it been a handicap for you? Because, Furrows in the Field, in contrast, is so well researched. You've gone through almost even your footnotes are researched.
Yes.
So, in comparison, how different is this?
Yeah, I make it very, very clear right at the beginning. The very first paragraph in my introduction clearly says this is not a book of biography. Okay. Because a book of biography takes much more effort and much more, even the subject needs to have spent that kind of life. Devegowda, you mentioned Mr. Devegowda, and I in the very first line of my book there, I call him a big life, Dodda Jiva.
Absolutely.
Rahul Gandhi has still not gotten to that kind of thing. So he does not give you a lot of archival material to sort of dig into, to sort of, and it's also led a kind of life which is not so much in the open. His personal life is not there in the open.
Absolutely.
And so you have to basically navigate through his speeches and his interviews and perceptions about him, and the kind of opinions that people have written about him, what have his opponents sort of opined about him. So you have to sort of look at all that. That's the kind of landscape that exists. So I decided that I will not do a biographical work, but write a longish essay. Initially I wanted it to be 150 page essay, which obviously grew much bigger than I thought, because I'm also trying to situate Rahul Gandhi in a larger political landscape, social landscape, his own mental landscape. So it took far more pages than I thought it would, but I was absolutely clear right from the beginning that it shall not be a work of biography, but it will be a book of political commentary. And political commentary is something that I can legitimately sort of stake claim to, is because you and I have been journalists for a very long time. We have seen so many elections. We have seen his entry into politics. We have seen how he has progressed. We have seen his defeats and his successes and his, humiliations. So there is a lot of material out there which can be reinterpreted or analyzed or looked at far more carefully than you would do in your everyday journalism.
You have spoken about your two meetings with Mr. Rahul Gandhi.
Right.
Also, you have met him on innumerable other occasions.
Right.
Can you tell us from your meetings, what is the image of him that you carry away?
Well, I've described two meetings that I've had, long meetings that I've had in 2014 and 2018 with him. They were fairly long because we were discussing. In 2014, I went to interview him, and so it was a pretty long meeting. And 2018 was just before the Karnataka elections, so he wanted to have a freewheeling chat on how Karnataka is looking and what may happen, and basically to just get a kind of feedback. So I have described those two meetings because those were in one-to-one exclusive kind of meetings that I've had with him. On other occasions, there have been other people as well, so I'm not so much worried about speaking about them. In these meetings, whenever I've met him or been in close proximity to him, he has always come across as a very warm human being. His human nature comes out very clearly. He comes across as a very kind, very, very empathetic kind of human being. And he also comes across as someone who is decently well read, someone who has ideas of his own. You can debate whether you agree with those ideas or not, but then he has reasonably well formed ideas, and he comes across, as I said, well read, and there is a kind of urge to do something radically different in him. That is something that I gathered each time I met him. So that is something that has remained in me, in a distinct fashion. Otherwise, I think your and my perception of him as a public person is not very different from what I've been trying to describe here. But you feel his humanity. He's warm. He's, probably not a great listener. I say this because I have the experience of Mr. Devegowda, on whom I did a biography. It becomes invariable to compare because that was a recent book. Mr. Devegowda can listen for hours together
without saying a word.
Without saying a word.
Absolutely.
Right? And if you try to speak to him after that, he'll recall every word of what you have said and at what juncture, and then starts interpreting it. But in the case of Mr. Rahul Gandhi, I will say that he is keen to speak. He's keen to sort of put across his views, and he's fairly opinionated. Probably he would have made a good opinion writer. He would make a good columnist, I think.
Also, in your book, you have dedicated an entire chapter number 9, to the long walk of Rahul Gandhi. You're talking about his Bharat Jodo Yatra. Did you participate in the yatra, and what is your observation of the yatra?
No, I did not participate in the yatra. Obviously, I just wanted to be a distant observer, because if you get very close to things, I had already sort of decided to write the book. So I did not want to, I did observe the yatra from a distance without actually walking the thing. I was very close to, what was happening and all that. And I did write a lot of columns, including for your own paper. That was one of my very popular columns. So in that, I don't try to sort of analyze him on what was right or what was wrong or what was phenomenal about the whole thing. but I'm trying to see uh, what kind of impact Rahul Gandhi is making on ordinary people. That was my primary kind of concern, and I am just trying to see how the whole thing pans out in the south of India when he's walking in the south of India, and what happens after he crosses the Vindhyas. You know, his kind of associations with temples and mosques, and the kind of the element of religion, or the element of the diverse identities that exist as you walk through, as you see different people, how he is sort of completely taken over by them, and his constant search for very human kind of situations, trying to redress them. Then he keeps repeating the story about poor girls coming and shivering, and he having to sort of tell them that I'll wear a t-shirt until you get your. No, it all sounds very sentimental and emotional, and not something, not a typical response of a politician. But there is something else that he's trying to sort of capture and redress and address. So those are things that are there in that chapter. So you will see that.
Congress supporters almost, through tears, said that Rahul Gandhi has been the single most slandered, criticized politician. They said that there is a virtual industry after him to defame him, to slander him, to shred his image to bits. And yet, this same Rahul Gandhi was slapped with a defamation case. And you have referred to it in your book. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, to the first question
The
that you asked.
irony of it.
Yeah, the irony of it. Yeah, the irony exists that he has been the most defamed person, and he was slapped with a case of defamation, which led to disqualification and then his rehabilitation and all of that. But that is something that that's a factual position. But the thing is that that defamation cases are on specific things. So, but the Congress party has never believed in, I think, filing cases of defamation against anybody or whatever. Even when a lot of criticism happens against the family, I write about this. They're like the British royal family. They just ignore it. Only of late has the British royal family, at least a few people inside the British royal family, who started, filing cases against the media or whatever. We saw a recent case in London. But these people have had that kind of an attitude where they just don't respond to criticism. They just don't correct the position also. Sometimes a lot of things are being said which is absolutely malicious, absolutely wrong, but nobody makes an effort to correct it. But that has been a kind of royal attitude towards a lot of things that these people have had. So it is ironical that he was charged, but then it was for a specific case. So we have to go into the merits of that case to see if it really deserved to be hauled up for defamation. Was the it's now already, the Supreme Court has said that the quantum of punishment was very, very very large and very heavy, and and then the Supreme Court has said probably that is not justified. So even before the Supreme Court judgment came, my book had this. I was done with my book, and I speak about the quantum of judgment, what happened in other cases of defamation. All of that comes in. But there is a more basic question to be asked about now. The congressmen, as you said, may claim victimhood about being slandered continuously over the years. But my question is, what have they done to sort of stop it? So when they, for a very long time, they did not have a social media kind of active cell, and when they did, they only
they manned it to the wrong people, they say.
No, manning is one thing. Manning is a completely separate thing. But then you reproduce the structure of the BJP's IT cell. So how did you do it differently? And there may be a larger question also there, probably on the kind of social media tools that we have or platforms that we have, You can't do things differently because they are constrained by their own design. And these are tools that have been created to sort of make you addicted to certain ways of behavior. There is a behavioral science involved when you have to speak about these things. So you, whether it's the Congress or whether it's the BJP, your patterns of reaction are going to be the same there. So it is social media which is conditioning you to respond in a certain way. That's exactly what has happened. Today's Congress social media is not any less aggressive than the BJP's thing. They initially,
I
they
guess
probably
have
do a
no.
little more of fact checking rather than them. Or probably they're as virulent. They're as dismissive of you and me if we don't completely align with their views. There is a bit of intolerance in even in although they call themselves being in the liberal space,
Yeah, absolutely.
there is a bit of intolerance where if you don't completely agree with them, if say for instance I speak something for a regional party and who they keep labeling as B teams or A teams of BJP or whatever, they wouldn't sort of take it in their stride and try to sort of accommodate those views. They would want you to be completely aligned to them. And now, they're trying to make this a default, which is if you are liberal, then you're with the Congress. And if you're communal, you're with the BJP. So there is these two polarized extremes that you see in
Absolutely.
politics, and you make it look like there's nothing in between. But actually, there's a lot in between.
There's so many shades of grey in between.
Right, yes.
But on the other side, let's also look at this, that even a radical like Gadar
Yes.
was seen with Rahul Gandhi and seemed to express his affection for him, although he doesn't come from that same space. He comes from a totally different political space.
Yes. Yeah. No, Gadar had also changed, over the years. I think he had become less radical.
Absolutely.
He had moved towards the center and even slightly towards the right. So, the confluence of different ideological positions and trying to prop up Rahul Gandhi or the Congress party is also the inevitability of history. They see that there is a bigger kind of danger and they want to first get rid of that danger and then sort out the Congress. I think that is exactly the kind of technique that was adopted in 1977 to get rid of Mrs. Gandhi. So the Janata Party was formed and they all disintegrated after she was sort of defeated, and then she came back to power. But they are making, according to me, they are making a mistake because the BJP is not exactly the same kind of force that Indira Gandhi's Congress was. So this is a completely different kind of entity, political entity.
You've spoken of Rahul Gandhi as someone who's not had a very friendly media.
Yes.
The media has challenged him on more occasions. So at some point, you have said that it is Rahul, it is the Congress that allowed these oligarchs to thrive. So can we look at that? Because today the media, is vastly different from what it was, let's say, 10 years ago. Although I'm from the media, you're from the media, without any biases, if we
Yes.
can talk. Uh, you know, and at some point, the media, certain institutions like the courts, Rahul himself has said it at certain points, that they have been subverted, that they have not been free. So, do you think if other things are equal, things will be different for Rahul?
I think it's very, very important to remember it was the same media that propped up the Congress. It is the same media that has worked for the Congress. Or I wouldn't say for the Congress, but then it's the same media that has operated when Congress was in power. And Congress at that point did not try to make structural changes to make the media free or try to sort of say, for example, cross holdings or anything like legislative changes that were absolutely necessary. And even when the media, during the Congress's rule and the media was there, even at that time, the media was largely controlled by the upper castes. And even to this day, it's controlled by the upper caste. And Rahul Gandhi or the Congress
Almost
party.
almost a 99%
Yes.
control or
yes,
100%.
100%. Almost. It's almost 99%, as you said. But Rahul Gandhi or the Congress party have never sort of spoken about diversifying that thing. I mean, they have never sort of vociferously spoken about the need for a certain kind of diverse media. That has never been argued for. And in a kind of media climate that exists today, and with a kind of government that exists today, where there is a certain kind of majoritarian opportunism, the media being prejudiced in a certain way by default, I wouldn't say deliberately, would tend to sort of go with the other side because they feel more. I mean, it's an extension of their cultural sense. So they just tend to go with it. So the Muslims or the Dalits or the other oppressed don't tend to seem to get represented in the media as much as one would want them to do because they constitute the majority of this country. So that does not happen. And I have not seen Rahul Gandhi or the Congress party argue for that kind of diversity inside newsrooms. Diversity should have been a huge project inside newsrooms, which has never happened, and it has been like that for ages. Nobody has questioned that. Now, when things start going against them, they blame the media. But then you have to look at it structurally. Did you make any effort to sort of change the kind of media climate when you were in power? You didn't. And now you are sort of had to bear the consequences of it. And the regime that took over from you was far more efficient in controlling or handling or manipulating, whatever you may want to call, the institution or the fourth pillar or the fourth estate, as you would want to call.
Speaking about Karnataka, now when Rahul Gandhi spoke at public meetings in 21 and 22, he made a bold statement saying we're looking at 150 seats. And almost everybody ridiculed him. And, almost like poor guy, doesn't know. And but today the Congress has won 135 seats plus. So do you think this kind of a statement and this fantastic success, some credit should go to Rahul, or is it in spite of Rahul?
See, I don't think Rahul Gandhi campaigned as much as one thought he should. Or I'm not. I don't do the day-to-day journalism anymore. But I don't think he campaigned as much as one thought he would. And this 150 figure was a kind of vision that he set. Even Amit Shah said that the BJP will get 150, and he also said if we don't get 150, you can call me on that day, and all kinds of things he said. So I think that's a kind of routine statement of expression of some kind of intent or vision that a politician would do. So I wouldn't attach much importance to that. But should Rahul Gandhi get credit for the whole thing? I'm not very sure about that. Probably yes and probably no, because this election, as you know, was fought on a lot of local factors. Local leadership was important, and also the final months or the final weeks turned out to be very, very different. And I don't think the congressmen themselves thought they'll get 135 or 137 or whatever. I don't think they were very, very confident about that kind of a huge number. It happened for a variety of reasons, guarantees included, and also wanting to sort of get rid of a regime which was which had failed the people of Karnataka really badly. That's the Bommai government. So I think a lot of factors contributed, and I don't think Rahul alone, or see, people try to tell you when the election results came that Rahul Gandhi's Bharat Jodo Yatra had contributed enormously to the success of the Congress party in Karnataka. But if you look at the route map of the Bharat Jodo Yatra, there are also places where they have not done well. So it is,
which is on the path of the
and on
yatra.
the path of the yatra. So it is, see, it is always the case in the Congress party that if you are defeated, somebody else takes the, blame for it, and if you win, you always attribute it to the family. That is the kind of culture that exists in the Congress party. And see, for that matter, if you're attributing one success to Rahul Gandhi, there are several defeats. He should have just walked away from the electoral scene.
Absolutely.
So, two general elections, several state elections. So, I don't think it is a point to be sort of asserted that, whether credit should be given to him or not.
Okay. Rahul himself has not read the book because the book is not out on the shelves.
Yes.
How soon will this book be on the shelves?
This book will be out by the end of this month across India, and I think in Delhi it will be available a little earlier. And we have amazing pre-orders. So I think all that will get sent out by the end of this month. So by the end of this month, this book should be out. So this is the book. Yep.
One last question before I let you go. Rahul Gandhi is virtually the de facto boss, the head of the Congress. He's been former president of AICC, someone who carries the Congress on his shoulders.
Yeah.
Today he might not be the AICC president, it is someone from Karnataka, Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge, but nevertheless everybody knows who's the boss.
Yeah.
So if you look at Karnataka, which is one of the important states where Congress is in power, a man of the stature of B.K. Hariprasad was denied a berth in the cabinet, although he's been a high command man with having served as general secretary in 16 different states.
Yeah.
Some say that the high command has become so weak that they're not able to call the shots. High command or Rahul. So how do you look at that? Has the high command become weak? Has Rahul become weak?
First of all, it's very unfortunate that someone like Mr. B.K. Hariprasad was denied a berth. His performance in the council was very good. As a leader of the opposition in the council was very good. Plus, there is experience. And the Congress government here brought in an OBC candidate who was not even a member of either houses. And they almost spited. It looked like it was being done deliberately. So that's the perception that I have. It's very unfortunate. And you asked me about Mr. Kharge. And I thought Mr. Kharge, as AICC president and as a Dalit face of the Congress party, and after Jagjeevan Ram, I think he's sort of got the biggest position now in the country as a Dalit leader. I thought he would be a little more assertive. And I also thought that Rahul will make use of his experience in a far better way. That has not happened so far. He doesn't still have his team. He doesn't have a political secretary. He is continuing with a default team that Rahul Gandhi functioned with. That is as people like K.C. Venugopal and others, Surjewala and people like that. So I don't think Kharge per se has been allowed to have his team, or probably Kharge has not asserted himself enough. So all this leads to the perception that it is Rahul Gandhi who is running the show while Kharge is there in the front to sort of cover for him. There are several such examples that can be recounted from recent times. And you asked me about the High Command. The composition of the High Command has also changed. The time when Mr. B.K. Hariprasad was said to be close to the High Command, there were several other elements in the High Command which probably said there was a Pranab Mukherjee, there was an Ahmed Patel, there was a Ghulam Nabi Azad. There were several other elements in the High Command which probably was far more, how do you put it? Far more judicious, or far more recognizing of experience and whatever. So, it has changed. That composition has changed. Now I think it's virtually run by 2 or 3 people. And I also know from, from experience, or from my thing over having been a journalist for a very long time, that Sonia Gandhi was far more collaborative. So that is not something that you see in Rahul Gandhi. You don't see that kind of a collaborative attitude in him. Sonia Gandhi was far more consultative, allowed people to sort of function in a certain, with a certain degree of freedom. She allowed things to happen on their own, and I think she ran a pretty decent setup for 10 years. I mean, of course, every leadership has its own pluses and minuses. So I wouldn't completely brush aside Rahul Gandhi, but then Rahul Gandhi has obviously not been successful. So a lot of questions do come up.
On that note, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
There it
inviting
is,
me.
Mr. Sugata Srinivasaraju, very well known columnist, author,